All right, how is everybody doing? Hopefully, everybody is having a good day. I am. I just finished doing an IG live and was talking about the 5 reasons why my first company failed, and I thought, maybe interesting to share, maybe from the investment side, just some of the mistakes or missteps that I've had, just for the benefit of persons to, I guess, learn from my mistakes, right? I'll try to not make it too specific in the sense that we are talking about investing. So I want to keep it neutral in the sense that not because some of these things are more recent than others, and so I want to make it meaningful without having persons be able to say, well, Jermaine did XYZ, right? um so I have to give you a backstory before I get into this. So one of the things about me is that I started investing at the age of 33, right? So I'm 41 years old now, and started investing at 33. Did my first IPO back in 2017. That was VMIL. We took all of our savings at the time, and we were so sure that it was, guaranteed money. We put everything on it, and we just said, we're going to be wealthy. We're going to turn this money that we put down into, millions upon millions upon billions, because once we purchase it, investing is the new thing, and it's just gonna go great for us. You get where I'm going, right? So it didn't turn out that way. In fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's 8 years later, and the company VMIL that we bought at the time, if I'm not mistaken, I think the other day I saw it right around IPO price, right? Which I believe was $2.33. So just imagine that you made an investment, and 8 years later it's valued at the same amount, if not a little less than what you paid for it. Um, that's certainly, you know, um, one of the things I think about. Now I'm going to get into these mistakes. I don't want you to judge me. I don't want you to feel like, I don't have any sense, or that Jermaine shouldn't be teaching people how to invest because clearly he doesn't know what he's doing. That's how I feel sometimes. I'll actually be honest there and just say that I'm not always sure. I'm not always feeling like I am the best person to do this, or the best person who does this. And I think that's just me um, still trying to figure it out, just like the persons who I talk to, the persons who I coach, the persons who I teach are figuring it out as well. So I like to say I've made enough mistakes to be able to help people make less mistakes, or certainly to avoid the mistakes that I've made. So I know from that perspective, me having made so many mistakes, I can help people to avoid them, because I certainly thought about them, um, obsessed over them, for lack of a better phrase. And I always try to understand where I went wrong. If I made money, I want to know why. If I lost money, I want to know why. And that process, I think, has helped me just overall. So I'm going to try to do it this way. I'm going to start with just something that I think um, kind of builds up in terms of momentum. This is not in any order, but the one of the most expensive mistakes that I made. The very first one would be, I remember, um, there was, after I've done a few IPOs, right? So this was maybe year two of my investment journey, and so far I did the VMIL IPO, which at the time we were in profit with. It was going well, and I also had done another. I don't remember which one it was. I think we did MJE at the time, which I don't remember how much it was. I don't know if MJE was before or after this one, I'm going to say, but I remember purchasing MJE at the time. That was when I started my Mayberry account, and I purchased it. I believe it went up. We made some money on that one. And I was like, okay, cool, this IPO thing is everything. I don't need to do anything else. You just, get as much money as you can, buy into the IPOs, and just, give it a couple of months, 30%, 40%. Like, why work if I have enough money? If I can put 5 million on it or 10 million on it and get 30%, then 30% of 10 million would have been 3 million. No, I didn't have 10 million at the time, by the way. In my mind, though, it was that simple. But the first mistake I wanted to talk about was that there was this IPO that came out. I will not say the name of the company, but even before the pandemic, this IPO came out, and it was being pushed by a broker that is no longer operating as a legal broker. That may give you a clue as to which one it is. And I literally didn't read the prospectus, didn't even do any analysis. I just sat with my advisor and said, how much money can I make, on this? And so I took my money, put it, I don't remember how much I put on it, but at the time I was doing maybe like a 500,000 per IPO or something like that, right? And I did that, and I think it went up for maybe a day, and then went straight down after that. I think this one was an interesting story, right? Because in this case, the broker actually sold my shares without my permission, which was fortunate for me because they sold it before it went down. so, they sold it at IPO price, and like a couple months later, a month or so later, I get a notice in the mail that my shares have been sold. The funds are on my account. And I was like, I didn't authorize this. What happened? Only to find out that they sold my shares without asking my permission. I had set up the thing where they have to verify with me before they sell. But I was like, well, hey, you saved me some money there. But it was an expensive mistake in the sense that it was an expensive mistake, and that's because I made an investment decision that I did not properly research, right? So it spoke volumes to me that I was willing to take up my hard-earned money, put it on an investment that I didn't know. I don't know to this day who are the founders of the company, what the company really does, how the company makes money, what their balance sheet looks like, what their profit and loss looks like. I don't even know where the company is trading now, but certainly at the time, I was willing to put money on it. And that certainly could have been a very expensive mistake. But it's almost like the problem almost solved itself. So as I see you saying, Tavares, it was the option that I chose, maybe, right? I don't recall having done that, but it makes sense, right? It's logical for them to have that indemnity thing that they ask you to sign, and so it's reasonable to assume that, and I think you're likely right there. But I can see how if I didn't have the option to, or they didn't sell those shares, I would have lost a lot of money on that investment, right? And I can think of other times when this leads me to the next thing that I would do, right? So back when I'm just starting, didn't know about, finance Twitter, didn't know about groups on Telegram that persons talked about investing. I was literally an investor and trying to find information wherever I can. And so naturally, if you started in this space back in 2017, 2018, 2019, you're going to find yourself on Twitter, right? Because that's the only place where persons talked about investing at the time, or there was Money Max 101 at the time, and I think Deveroy Davis, shout out to Deveroy if you're here. Deveroy Davis had a Telegram group. I don't remember what it was called. I don't remember what it was called, but it was like the probably OG Telegram group. I remember some of the characters there, and I would find myself in these groups, and I'm looking to see what people are talking about, right? And some persons would, call out their investments. I know better now, of course, that some of those persons, what they're trying to do is create an opportunity to sell to you, right? Because I've come to learn and just process, and it's logical, right? If somebody is touting an investment, it could very well be that when more persons flock to that investment and buy that investment, it may increase in value in volume due to increased trading, and then that presents them an opportunity to realize a profit on your eagerness to get in. And this is something that happens all over the world. So I'm not singling out the Jamaican market for doing that. That happens to investors all over the world, right? We see persons go on Twitter, talk up a stock, and then the stock goes up, in the overseas market, and then, persons are, being charged with swaying the market, etc. We haven't seen that in Jamaica, right? But that was something that would happen, and so I would try to time these investments. So I'm looking at what people are talking about, and if everybody's talking about, let's say everybody's talking about Siboney. Siboney was one of those that would get a lot of chatter very early back in the day, and so I'm looking at it, and I didn't understand the queue. I didn't understand how to invest. I didn't understand how to make decisions. I didn't know when to buy. I didn't understand pre-market when I would see some ridiculous orders in pre-market, and just wanting to make some money. And so I would fund my account and then just try to buy shares. And then, of course, what I would be doing is thinking that as soon as the price starts to go down, I'm going to lose money if I don't sell. And so if I bought and it didn't immediately go up, then I would panic. And so I'm watching the queue, staring at the queue, seeing the price go up and down, seeing the price trending down. And if it got to the end of the day and I was in a loss, or maybe the end of that week and I was in a loss, and then it starts to go down further, I would just certainly panic. And so I remember just taking a lot of little losses that would add up, like a 10%, a 20%. I didn't understand, for example, that if persons are eagerly, buying into a stock, the price may go up, even if it triggers circuit breaker, and you buy at that higher price. If persons are now moving out of that stock, then it's gonna put you in a position where you either have to wait for that stock to recover, or you'll have no choice but to take a loss. And that used to happen to me a lot, right? I would be putting in money and losing 10% here, 5% there, 10% there. And that was the phase where I was trying to figure out, I was trying to trade, because, again, I'm getting pulled in emotionally to all of these persons saying that they're doing these things. It sounds amazing. I'm like, if they can do it, why can't I do it too? And was just really pulled in. And I was losing money, quietly losing money, not feeling like I can say anything about it, because of course, if you were losing money, clearly you didn't know what you were doing. Clearly you don't have any sense. And I think, whatever I started out with, I think after like 6 months, I'd look at that capital and I'm like, let's say it was 300,000, maybe I had 220 or 210. So I knew that I was losing money, right? And so that was very unsettling for me. That was not something that was comforting. I got very, very discouraged at one point. I remember a stretch where I just stopped looking at J Trade. I stopped going into groups. I stopped wanting to invest because I felt frustrated that I thought I understood what I was doing, but I was just trying to invest according to what others were saying. Um, Now, the flip side of that is today in 2025, I have some very strong convictions, meaning I went from allowing people to sway me emotionally in terms of how I invest to almost not always taking good feedback right now. Meaning, once I do my own research, once I have that conviction, there's nobody who can change my mind, which I guess in some ways can be a blessing, but it also means that maybe I'm not open to hearing the right feedback or maybe looking at something from a different perspective because I'm trying to protect myself from what I used to do in the past where I'll just listen to any and anybody to just try to make some money. So um, that mistake cost me. I haven't even been able to quantify how much money I lost over those months, probably a little over a year, where I was just buying based on what persons were saying, right? I remember when I actually made some money that way, meaning somebody said something, I think, in a group, and I bought the stock. I'm actually up, I think, 20%, 30%. And I'm like, wow, I finally figured it out. I'm good. And I was able to sell it at a profit as like, no man, this is gonna do so well, 30%, I think in like 2 weeks. I'm like, if I can just make 30% every 2 weeks, 60% a month, 60% every month is 720% for the year, I'm going to be rich. And it didn't work out that way at all. Didn't work out that way at all. I think I had quite a losing streak after that, right? So just saying that to land the point that you really don't want to invest that way, that was very costly for me. Um, and the truth is, I actually see that same mistake with persons in some of the groups I'm in now, where it's always a red flag for me when somebody or the same person keeps asking, what's happening with this stock? What's happening here? What's happening here? What that tells me is that, well, first, I have an appreciation for somebody who is new. If you're new, you ask questions, that's normal. But if you're looking over 3 months, over 6 months, over a year, if the same person is asking the same questions, it tells me that that person hasn't really taken the time to learn what they're doing. So if you're asking what's happening, then it means that you don't know what's happening. It means that somebody has to tell you. If somebody has to tell you, that person can misinform you. That person can share their own opinion that could not be factual. And so when I see it, I look at it and I understand, right? As I said, I've been there, but it's dangerous and it's very expensive. It's costly. I've lost money that way. I remember as well when somebody gave a very, very compelling reason why a certain stock was going to do well on social media, and the comments were saying, this makes sense, and we're all doing this thing, we're all buying. And so I watched that stock maybe go up 40-50% and then go down almost 30%, right? And again, that was a lesson for me, right? That one I can share, right? No, I'm not gonna share that one. I was gonna say the name. I was like, nope. That stock was very infamous back in the day, right? And it's just it's. I wish I could share just how much money I've lost in these kind of things, because I would love to just give persons appreciation. And you're correct, right? Some people buy high and sell low. That was me. This was me 7-8 years ago. 6, 7 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. I'm trying to do the math. But I really only figured out what I was doing the more I started to do videos like this, right? The more I started to do videos, the more I started to analyze companies for myself, the more I started to do research, the more I started to, look at what was happening for myself. I started to get a feel of things on my own. And so, yeah. So Tavares, for me, I'm actually, I look at it as wisdom in a sense, because I'll tell you why. For me, personally, and I was having a conversation with somebody at my workplace this week where we're talking about salary, and um, you know, we were kind of highlighting the fact that, for example, people don't talk about how much they make. And for me, I've never been someone who is afraid to say how much they make, or how much they've made, or how much they've lost, or anything like that. But what I notice is that people don't reciprocate. So people don't share. So I will be in a conversation with somebody, I share, and the person doesn't say anything back. The person's like, okay, cool, that's good for you. They don't say anything. Um, I'll share how much money I've lost. They don't say anything. I'll share how much I got in dividends. They don't say anything. So it started to occur to me that I'm the only one sharing. I'm the only one saying anything. I'm the only one making myself vulnerable and sharing my business, my information. And I've actually seen some of the things that I've shared in a moment of vulnerability. I've seen it on social media before. I've seen persons make make a joke of something that I've said on a video, or use it as um, something to just throw a jab here or there. So I look at it as wisdom now, in the sense that when I meet somebody face to face, if I'm talking to you, Tavares, face to face, you're willing to share, I'm willing to share. We can just be as open and transparent as possible. But I'm not gonna be fully sharing all the details on social media when I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know what you look like. I don't even know if some persons here are using their real names, right? There are a lot of persons here are not using their real names. So I am being, open and honest and vulnerable in what I'm sharing, and you are using a fake name or a fake account, and all this stuff about me that now puts me at risk, my family at risk, and other things. So I have no problem talking about money, but I'm going to do it in a wise way, because it also has impact. I remember, I'll give you a tangible example. I remember when um, I was talking to somebody, and they literally was able to tell me. So they found out from somebody I worked with, that same conversation about salary. Imagine I'm meeting someone and they can tell me how much I'm making for my salary. I didn't know this person before. I didn't share it with them directly, but they heard, right? So um, I have no problem with openness and transparency. I just think it has to be, reciprocated, right? So the third one that I'll share, this is an infamous story. Most of you may know it already, but this one is the famous Blue Power story, right? I'll never forget that one. It hurts me to this day, right? I think this was before Blue Power would have split with Lumbo, right? It was a while back, and I remember my advisor, who I had a very interesting relationship with, was like, buy Blue Power. I didn't know why. Honestly, couldn't tell you. And I purchased 50,000 shares. At the time, it was $5 per share. And, had it for a couple of weeks, didn't know, it's like, okay, cool, it's there. And then all of a sudden, the price started to go up. And I was like, okay, cool. Blue Power is at $7 now, $8 now. It's going well. I'm like, cool, I'm up 60%, I'm up 70%, I'm up 80%. I don't remember how long it took, but it went all the way up to $17.50. And I remember that figure precisely because I calculated how much my shares were worth. And I was like, That's amazing. Because of course, 1750 would have been, well, $10 is 100%, 15 is 200%. So it was 250% that I would have made on my investment. But it was all unrealized because I didn't sell. Because of course, we have this mindset that when the price goes up, it's going to keep going up. It won't ever go back down. And we just want to sell at the top. We all want to do that. We want to sell at the maximum point that we can sell because we don't want to sell and know that it keeps going, right? We have this fear of missing out. And so I watched it go from $5 to 1750 all the way back to $5. I'll never forget that story because, and I'm going to calculate it because this one I will quantify how much exactly I lost in Unrealized. So it was $50,000. Was 50,000 shares, and it went to 1750, right? So it was 875,000 at the time that it was valued, and I would have spent 250,000. So I was up over $500,000, and that got completely wiped out. I lost all of that. I think I ended up selling it maybe at a 5% or a 10% gain. But or I lost. I honestly don't remember that part. But I just remembered all of those gains being wiped out. And that was a $500,000 lesson for me, right? I realized the importance of taking profit. Now, I don't take profit as often as I hear some people talk about taking it, but I've certainly learned the value in taking it in a strategic way. So I'm not the type of person who it goes up 20% or 30%, I'm going to take profit immediately. I don't have the temperament for that. I don't have the time for that. I said to somebody once, at the time I take to make these videos, if I spent the same time making videos as I did investing, I would have been making a lot more money. But I'm investing my time in building our community, in helping other persons, and so I do sacrifice some of my own profitability to help persons, right? So that was a $500,000 mistake, and that was when I really started to understand the importance of taking profit. I also remember for Seprod, I was someone who purchased Seprod when they did the offer for sale. I think it was at $23.99. As like that price never left my mind in terms of what it was being sold for. And Separate, I think at the time went as high as $60. So I got more than 100% on my money. And I think it went back down to like 30s or 40s, right? So it went up to a certain point, didn't take profit, came back down, and it took a long time to get back to 60. Of course, Separate is selling for, I think, in the 80s now. But I didn't fully learn that lesson. I remember as well, at the time, which one was it? Was it Carib Cement? I remember, some of you may not remember this, but back in the day, Carib Cement would trade consistently between like $40 and $50. It would literally just do this dance where you could get 10%, 15 or 20% in a week, and it would just go up, down, up, down. And at one point, I believe it had a breakout for some reason. It went up to, I think, high 70s. And again, I didn't take profit, lost all of that in unrealized gains, and I just had a series of mistakes in that way that none were as high as the Blue Power one, and that's why it stands out to me so much. Of course, I think Blue Power is a great company now, especially. But at the time, I didn't know what I had, right? So the lesson there was very, very powerful for me because I would have left so much money on the table. I would have missed out on the opportunity to make so much money. And I mean, those lessons stayed with me. All right, so I'll share two more, but I'm halfway through the video. So I want to kind of see if there are any questions or comments that, I can not make, you guys feel like I'm not taking your comments. And there I was, forgetting to click go live on Instagram one more time. All right, so I see Tabara is saying, I'm sorry I didn't start my journey earlier. I used to feel that way, but I don't anymore, meaning I was terrible with money when I was younger. So if I started investing earlier, I wouldn't be as good as I am at it right now, meaning I'd probably just lose more money, if that makes sense. And I think I would have shared this before already, in the era of transparency, when I was younger, I had a gambling problem, right? So for me, it was actually the same thing, that same company I don't talk about now. It was Supreme Ventures. I would be buying numbers, buying cash, but trying to win at all cost. And that's why when I say to persons that I know the impact that that company has on people, it has on families, it has on, persons who are supposed to be providing for their families, but instead they're maybe, spending their last to try and win it big. Because even with that, I would, for example, I remember the first time I would have won some money there. I bought a number for $1,000, and I think the payout at the time was 26-1. So I won $26,000, and I literally spent that $26,000 trying to win more and lost all of it. So there's this thing that gambling does to you where it entices you to keep going. It entices you to try and escalate. It entices you to try and just go all in to win big, and you get this false sense of security that once you win, you'll keep on winning. It's actually similar in the sense, in terms of the emotional, roller coaster that investing brings as well. I'm certainly not saying that investing is gambling, and a lot of people, or some persons at least, used to say that, or persons used to think that. I don't. When you buy Cashbot, you're buying nothing. You're buying, thin air. You're literally gambling. When you purchase stocks, you're purchasing ownership in a company. You are purchasing the opportunity to have an asset that has value, that can increase for many generations to come. When you purchase that ticket and that draw comes and that draw passes, that money that you spent for a piece of paper is now worthless, right? So it's certainly not the same thing. So just giving you that backstory, because some persons may see me say, well, I'm not going to speak about, Supreme Ventures, not going to speak about Carreras. These are things that I've experienced, I've seen firsthand, and now I have a principle because one, to guard myself, and two, I've seen the impact that it has on people, right? So yeah. So Humble Boss saying, you really help a lot of investors. Keep up the great work you're doing. God bless LGI. Thank you. Thank you for that. Some days I don't want to do it. Some days I don't want to do it. I'll tell you that much, because we do put a lot on the line to make LGI possible, and we're not always sure that it's worth it, but we are trusting that, as we have been trying to lay a foundation here, and we're trusting that we will be able to provide for ourselves and our family for generations to come with the investments we're making here, because 470 videos, an average of 1 hour per video the last 5 years of my life, countless meetings in terms of monthly meetings, helping countless persons, and Um, I'm not always sure that it's making a difference, but it certainly helps with seeing things like this. So I appreciate it for sure. Um, oh yes, so Tavares, I learned this along the way, right? A lot of investments firms label certain stocks as a buy while they are selling. You are right. I've seen this. I've guided persons to look at things, to look at who is giving the recommendation, who is telling you to buy, who is telling you to make this investment, and that certainly is something to think about. Um, Julian, I think somebody answered your question already, so thanks for that. Johnson said, I felt that frustration. I don't remember what I was saying at that point, but I mean, it happens. It happens. This is related to overseas. Not sure what that is about. It's almost as though they're seeking stock picks. Okay, yeah, man. Yeah, man, for sure. Starting out and not understanding pre-market happens to us all. I remember trying to buy low and sell high. The good old days. Yeah, man, for sure. So I do miss those days actually. And I read this one before, so I do miss. Let me tell you what I miss. I miss the fun of investing, meaning I wish there are some things that I could learn again for the first time. I do wish that there are certain decisions that were life changing for me, right? The most profit I've ever taken from an investment is probably about 3 or 4 million in any one transaction. And those kind of things, I'll have different firsts in the future, but there are a lot of things that I do now because it's more principled and there's not really any novelty to it anymore, meaning I'm just like, okay, it's just something that I have to do. But this kind of losing myself in investing, losing, myself in the search for the next opportunity, things like that. I don't invest that way anymore. I'm investing for my family. I'm investing for my wife, my parents, myself in terms of planning for retirement, and it's different because there is responsibility there. So I can't be just nonchalant with money anymore, right? So the moment it clicks is when you're evaluating your portfolio after you've learned a bit and you see that one stock that you really shouldn't have, just dump it right away. For sure, for sure, for sure. And that's why I rebalance so often, and I do it um, without any hesitation. I'll be if a stock is in my portfolio for too long, and I'll know it's too long, the stock will know it's there too long as well. I'll look at it in my Excel sheet, and I think it knows that it's about to be sold. And so I go to JTrader, I hit sell. I don't even think about the price. I'm like, it's time to move on. So yeah. Um, so um, Cheesy Gully said pretty much did the same thing, got a stock at $2 and it went up to 14 and it's right back down. Well, there you go, right? David, it happens, right? It's a part of the learning process. Mark, you're asking a very good question, right? Mark says, when you buy crypto, are you not buying thin air? I actually don't. If when you're buying a meme coin, you're buying thin air. The currencies that I buy are ones I think that is based on some utility, right? So Ethereum and some others, that to me is not buying thin air, because I'm especially things like Ripple, in terms of when I first learned about it, how they said it was going to be used, the impact it was expected to have. Now, some of it has not lived up to what it should have been, but certainly it's not thin air, right? You're buying, if you tell me that you're buying code or you're buying an algorithm or something like that, sure, but it's not thin air. And I see crypto as speculative, but not gambling in how I frame gambling, right? I don't see it that way because again, it's from somebody who has a tech background. I look at it as investing in technology, right? So it is now there's a lot about the space that is left to be desired. So from that perspective, Mark, I would agree with you. Where to buy Doge, it's buying thin air. To buy, I've literally seen persons just make coins after themselves and sell it. And there was the whole NFT phase and all of that stuff. The space is relatively, um, it's like 90% speculative. But I actually think there is a balance, right? So there is speculation in investing in stocks as well. Um, so, for example, before Siboney became Innovative Energy Group, that was speculation. Before there was clarity around some companies that were listed, that was speculation. So, if you want to split hairs and say, well, crypto is gambling and so on, I mean, we can really have that debate for a long time. But for me, very things are defined very specifically for me. And so I can tell you that I don't see it that way. Now, I do have crypto in my portfolio, but I understand and appreciate that it is a speculative portion of my portfolio in the sense that the technology is early. A lot of the things so the stock market in itself, investing in stocks, is well mature, right? Stock markets have existed for over 100 years. So the concept of investing in stocks is not gambling because that's something that has proven to provide wealth over decades. Whereas crypto is what, maybe 10 years old, a little bit more than that. It is still yet to be seen what it will become or what it can become. So from that perspective, certainly some speculation, sure, but I wouldn't say it's whole entirely labeled um, as gambling. But again, if you want to get technical, I'm sure you can, make a case for it, right? Um, I don't know how people felt for buying it. Listen, it was an unfortunate time. Mark saying with companies, you will still have the underlying net assets. Are you talking about the crypto here, or are you talking about the stocks, right? So I lost track of what I was saying. You guys always do this to me. You pull me into conversation and then I have no idea what I'm talking about. I was talking about my most expensive mistakes, and there is one that I do want to talk about. Um, this one was, I want to share my biggest mistake. Can I do that here? I don't know. Hold on. I was happy. You see, that's always happens, right? So now I'm gonna have to try and remember where I was going, because when I start a video, I have clearly in my mind what I want to say, which is why sometimes I don't pay attention to the chat until I'm done, because I'm happy that Sean is not here to ask me about Dolphin Cove, because Sean always throws me off as well. Um, and now I don't remember what was the next one. I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes, so it won't take me long to come up with another one. But um, I know the largest loss I've ever taken was about 450,000. It was a company that um, I invested in, thinking, again, this was when I did. So most of the losses that I can think about comes back to one fundamental thing: not doing my research, not being patient with my investment decision, and just having fear that I'll miss something, right? Having fear that I'll miss the next thing that people are talking about, having fear that I will not be able to um, I'll be somehow um, not plausible, right? There was a long time, and again, I can admit this, no problem, when I was first starting, like the first set of videos I might have done on this channel, or the first set of, there's a reason why when I started out this channel, a lot of times I would have guests who would come on, and that's because I wasn't confident in what I saw, in what I was talking about, in what I was picking up. Now, when I spoke to friends privately, for example, Chike was one of the persons I talk investments with, would analyze companies, and we'd see certain things play out, and we'd say, okay, right, we were right about this, we're wrong about this, etc. I wasn't confident in. I remember the first time I had to do. So, for example, our Stocks to Watch episodes used to feature a lot of special guests, and persons would be there, and I wouldn't say much because I was thinking that I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't think people are gonna say, well, Jermaine said this stock and it turns out that he's wrong, and 6 months later they're gonna look back and say, Jermaine, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing, you're leading people astray, so on and so forth. And so I used to just find myself trying to let other people talk, let other people say what they see. And it was persons, I can tell you, persons like Andre Thompson that helped me build confidence. Chike, even Ryan Strawn helped me a great deal as well, because I found that I was focusing now on just understanding what they were saying. So, for example, I'd be reading Ryan's newsletter every Friday. I'd be talking to Andre, because Andre was in our WhatsApp group that we formed for LGI. And I would, for example, before I used to invest, I'm calling Andre, Andre, can you help me, understand this? Or I used to call people as well and say, what should I buy? I used to ask that question too. And there are persons who would help me. Like, persons will say, this is the process, this is what you go through, these are the questions you should ask and the things you should look for. And I'll never forget, I did a video about a company, and a good friend of mine reached out to me and said, Jermaine, talking to you about the video, what you said, your analysis wasn't correct, and walked me through it and helped me to kind of understand, what I was doing, to the point that I could, just learn from that. And that's when I started to pay more attention to what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, the things that I put forth as my opinion and stuff like that, right? Again, I'm diverting again, I'm sorry. But the largest loss that I had was about, I think, about 440,000 that I was down. And the company was certainly being hyped, and had gone through a series of milestones, and things were looking great, and I literally could see my profits dwindling. But because the one downside to buying volume that I like to buy is that it's not always easy to exit. And so I kept on hoping that it would recover, and had to just take a big loss. I'm happy that I moved on, because it's been a couple of years now, well, and the stock still hasn't recovered. But just appreciating the fact that I needed to make my own decisions. And that's why I think, again, as I said before, I'm more confident and comfortable in my own investing process now. So when somebody will say to me, Why not do the obvious thing? Why not just sell at this point or buy at this point? What seemed obvious to someone is not always obvious to me, and what seemed obvious to me is not always obvious to someone else. And I've come to appreciate that, meaning this, I guess this part is one of the things I'll say is the unfortunate thing about our space sometimes, where persons can make you feel like you're an idiot, meaning they're persons who genuinely ask questions to help you, and they're persons who make you feel like you're dumb, who make you feel like you shouldn't be asking questions, who make you feel like the way in which you're doing it is wrong. And just having to go through that is not always a pleasant thing. And yeah, so I think I'll leave it there in terms of mistakes. There's one other mistake that I made that I'll save for another time. Jay, what's wrong? What's that? I don't know if that's if I can't tell the emoji. Hey Shells, hope you're well. Yeah, so I'll take questions for 8 minutes. Let me know if you have any questions for what I'm saying. And thanks for listening. Oh, why are you gasping? What happened? Oh yes, Shell. So one of the things I've learned, so I'm only in 2 groups apart from LGI now, because I was in a lot of groups, and I had to understand. First thing I realized that there are a lot of the same people in all the groups, and I'm 100% convinced that some of these persons may not have a job because I'm in groups, but I know how much time it takes from me to just maintain a certain presence. And some persons are literally in all the groups, right? But of course, there are persons who would say that they're making more than enough money that they can, I guess, invest full time. That's another conversation for another day. But what I've learned, and I say this to persons, right? Choose one group or choose one path, one strategy, meaning find something that makes you successful and don't chase everything that could make you successful. Let me tell you what I mean. That's probably my last point. There's a way in which I speak about investing. There's a way in which I teach people how to invest. There's a way in which I do things. It's not the only way. It may not even be the best way. It's a way that I find that works for persons who process things a certain way, who looks at things a certain way. And so, just like, for example, not everybody would subscribe to Warren Buffett's way of investing, but he's had clear success so that you can take lessons from what he's done. But there are persons who will say, Warren Buffett's method doesn't make sense, value investing doesn't make sense. And there are persons who will say, he's leaving money on the table and so on and so forth. But what I like to say is this. The goal is wealth. The goal is to earn and be profitable with your investing. If I take 10 years to get there and you get there in 4, but we both get there, does it really matter how? And I say that because there are persons, again, who will make you feel like if you are not trading every day or doing certain things that you're not investing in the right way, in for lack of a better phrase. And again, I've said this before. I'm totally in support of persons doing what is within their skill set, what is within their preferences, and I think everybody has to come together to make the market work, right? If we all bought and never sold, the prices would not move, right? Volatility is how we make money. I fully appreciate that. But it's important to to steal from Gordon Swaby here, ignore the noise, right? So there is a lot of noise. And even I mean, we have done a good job in curating our groups, right? When we just started our Telegram group, it was very noisy and we had to curate it. I remember somebody saying to me that this was long before we had any program or anything like that, um, who would, just have just some not so nice things to say about, what we do, how we do it. There are persons who would say to me that who I would see post and saying things like, we're using our faith to try and pull people in to take their money and a whole bunch of stuff. And of course, at the time, you see things like that, you feel a little saddened by it, of course, because that's never been our intent. And I think the length of time we've done this consistently shows that we really want to help people. But we had to contend with the noise. And then I became very stringent with my groups to the point that I will literally remove you in a heartbeat. I don't entertain um, certain themes or certain things being said. And there are persons who will literally never be a part of a group that I run because maybe they don't like who I am, and that's okay. But my goal is to create a safe space for persons to learn to invest, for persons to feel like they're talking with friends, and to just ensure that persons are able to learn about investing, still do their jobs, still take care of their families, still have balance in their lives. So it's certainly not, I'll always say to our challenge members, never have FOMO. Never feel like you're going to miss an opportunity because there are always multiple opportunities, right? Trans Jamaica, I'll say it. I wanted to go one video without saying it, but alas, Trans Jamaica is a perfect example where there are persons who might have felt, if they didn't do something, if they didn't purchase in the offer, they would have missed out. And you clearly see that there were multiple opportunities to be able to participate, to be able to buy. And that's because of the same thing that I'm saying, where there are always multiple opportunities to buy. It may not feel that way, it may not be positioned that way, but you'll always have a chance. Um, so yeah, certainly, it's like having too much chips, right? So you don't want. I think you choose one or two credible sources, and that's it. I don't think you need to be a part of everything. I met someone once who said that they took, every course or was a part of multiple groups, and I thought to myself, that's a lot of spreading of your time, a lot of spreading of your resources. Why not find something, test it to see if it works, and double down on it, right? If you're in the challenge, great, awesome. Just go as far as you can go in it. When you feel like you can't learn anything new, or maybe I'm saying something that you're like, okay, it's time to move on, then move on. But if you're trying to do three or four things at the same time, especially if those ideas compete against each other or those styles compete with each other, then you may not have the effect. And then now you're blaming everybody in terms of not having success. And then really it's that you didn't really, it's like trying to box using multiple styles. It doesn't work, right? Quick question: is India's drugs made in Jamaica or India? I'm thinking about the US tariff hitting them hard. I don't know. I think the guys from Limitless would know. Matthew or Theon would know. I'll ask them for you. Um, and I think they'll probably watch the replay and answer it for me. So Shells, just probably check the comments in this video in a couple of days. I get the impression that it's made overseas. I'm just not sure where, but great question. I'm going to do a video for all the companies I think that are going to be impacted by the tariffs. I think that will be interesting. And I made a major change for my portfolio that I'm happy I did because of what's happening in the US right now, and I'm just preparing to take advantage of state of things, right? So thanks everyone for joining me for these late night streams. I really hope that you've been finding value in them. Please take a minute to like the video, share this channel with someone, right? Help us to increase our reach. We really want to get to, I used to have a goal for subscribers. I don't have those goals anymore, meaning I just want to create content that persons enjoy and that our community members feel like they're a part of something. But I'm not trying to get to like your 100,000 subs or anything like that. It would be nice to, but I'm not gonna chase after it. But I will ask you to like the video, right? That's what I'll ask you to do. Just like the video. There are 74 persons here. If you can like the video, that would be helpful. You've already given me your time, so you've invested your time already. I'll ask you to just like the video. That really does help us more than you know. Yeah, absolutely, right? So I do, and that's why I look forward to our meetups. So we're going to have a meetup. Well, we're certainly going to meet up this Friday at the conference in terms of the business mingle. And we're going to be just meeting up because we launched the business community. We're going to have a meetup for that one 2 weeks after the conference, just to kind of, bring everybody back again together who will be attending the conference. And we're going to be starting the book club, as we mentioned. So we're going to be reading business books. We're going to start doing book reviews on this channel and things of that nature. So there's a lot more to come, and it's all going to be centered around, conversation and sharing stories and learning from others. And so, yeah, look forward to it. And I'll see you in the next one. For everyone who will be at the conference, I look forward to meeting you. Feel free to come up to me and say hi. And I don't think I'm going to do another video because Friday, when I usually go live, I'm going to be at the conference. And I'm going to take a break next week. So I wanted to get this video in because this may be my last one for a while. All right. So take care, everyone. I'll see you again real soon.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest.